Welcome to Her Subconscious Blueprint, your no BS space for subconscious healing, bold breakthroughs, and becoming the woman who actually lives the life she dreams about. I'm Jen Boyd, hypnotherapist, mindset coach, and your new healing hype girl. Today, I want to speak to the woman who finds herself in a space between relationships and the woman who may feel like the culture's pressure, the expectations, the whispers that say, you should have someone. Today, I want to invite you into the deeper truth of what it means to be single, not as a state of lacking, not as a waiting room, not as something to fix, but as a powerful, sovereign identity. The work of Joe Dispenza touches on this profound idea that a woman living alone, even when she thought she was simply, quote unquote, alone, is entering a realm of magnetic power, coherence, and energetic sovereignty. The space between relationships becomes not a void, but a portal into your own becoming. And let's pause there because most women don't recognize a portal when they're standing in it. A portal doesn't look glamorous. It doesn't feel cinematic. It often feels quiet. It feels like evenings alone. It feels like making dinner for one. It feels like sitting with your own thoughts without distractions. It feels like not having someone to text goodnight, but energetically, something radical is happening. When you are no longer calibrating your mood to someone else, no longer adjusting your nervous system around unpredictability, no longer outsourcing your emotional stability to another human being, your body begins to reorganize. Your cortisol levels drop, your baseline stabilizes, your internal referencing strengthens. You stop asking, how do they feel about me? And begin asking, how do I feel within myself? The shift alone is sovereignty, and sovereignty is magnetic. We live in a culture that often defines a woman's worth by her relational status, married, partner, engaged, dating. If you're single, the stories may swirl. You might hear the internal script like, I'm missing something, or I'm behind, or what's wrong with me? But when you step off that treadmill of external deadlines and expectations, you begin to see something astonishing. Your singleness is not a defect. It is a gift. It is the landscape in which you meet your wholeness. It is the sunset before your dawn. Because culture will rush you even when your soul isn't ready to move. Culture whispers timelines into your ear and subtly convinces you that if you are not in a relationship by a certain age, something must be wrong with you. It measures you against weddings, engagements, anniversaries, pregnancies, and curated social media moments. And it quietly implies that singleness is something to solve rather than something to inhabit. But your nervous system does not evolve on a cultural timeline. It evolves on a healing timeline, and healing requires space. When you remove yourself from relational distractions, when you are no longer bending around someone else's mood or adapting your needs to maintain connection, something profound begins to happen internally. You begin to notice the subtle ways that you once negotiated your own standards. You begin to see where you tolerated inconsistency because being chosen felt better than being alone. You recognize the moments where you convinced yourself that potential was enough, that chemistry was depth, and intensity was intimacy. And in this space, this sacred, clarifying, sometimes uncomfortable space, you rebuild from truth instead of urgency. You begin choosing intentionally, and you choose connection over familiarity. Familiarity is powerful because the brain is wired to prefer what it recognizes, even if what it recognizes once hurt you. The subconscious does not label something as safe because it's healthy. It labels something as safe because it was predictable. That is why so many women repeat patterns without consciously meaning to. They're not broken. They're wired for familiarity. But when you step into intentional singleness, you interrupt that wiring. You begin asking not who will choose me, but rather who is aligned with the life I'm building. You begin asking things like, does this person feel steady in my nervous system instead of, does this person feel exciting? The shift alone transforms your entire relational blueprint. When Joe Dispenza speaks of women living alone becoming the most magnetic people you'll ever meet, he's not talking merely about the attractiveness. He's talking about the coherence of the brain and the heart aligning, of the nervous system recalibrating, of the woman standing in her own energetic field without needing external wiring. When you live alone, not by default, but by design, you begin to shift every layer of your experience. Your biology, your nervous system, your emotional architecture, your creativity. Suddenly, solitude isn't a fallback. It's the front line. It becomes where you claim your power rather than hide it. And you begin to sense that the universe doesn't respond to your relational status, responds to your frequency. And frequency is not shaped by wishful thinking. It is shaped by what you tolerate consistently. Your frequency is influenced by whether you answer the late night text that feels misaligned. It is influenced by whether you continue entertaining someone who cannot communicate clearly. It is influenced by whether you allow confusion to occupy space in your life simply because you are afraid of silence. So let me speak plainly and actually personally here. You start saying things like, it takes intention to be in my life now. And it's not because I believe that I'm superior to anyone, but because I have invested deeply in my nervous system, my healing, my growth, and my self-awareness. I have done too much internal work to invite chaos back in simply because it feels familiar. To enter my life requires emotional consistency. It requires a man who understands accountability without collapsing into defensiveness. It requires integrity when no one is watching. It requires someone who has taken responsibility for his own wounds instead of expecting a woman to regulate them for him. You start to say things like, I'm no longer available for potential without proof. I'm no longer available for chemistry without character. I'm no longer available for confusion disguised as depth. Because when you choose familiarity, you relive history. When you choose intention, you create your future. And your body always knows the difference before your mind ever does. So let's talk about how this shows up and how you can begin to step into it. Because if you are single right now and you want to feel empowered rather than empty, there's a path you have to take. And if you've been married, partnered, divorced, or wounded by love, and now find yourself in a season of solo status, this is a sacred rest to rebuild, not from lack, but from alignment this time. First, understand that being single does not equal loneliness. Loneliness is a feeling, a relationship to emptiness. Singleness is a state, a relationship to yourself. In the stillness of your own company, you are not required to hide, perform, or adapt to someone else's energy. In that quiet, you can hear the whispers of your own soul, see the shapes of your own dreams, feel the rhythm of your own nervous system. When you stop scheduling someone into your life just to validate your value, you begin to measure your own value by your presence. You begin to feel the pulsing truth that you are enough without the ring, without the +1, without the image, because you already are enough. And from that enoughness, your discernment sharpens in a way that feels almost surgical. When you no longer believe that a relationship will complete you, you stop dating and inviting people into your life from urgency. You stop overlooking small inconsistencies because you are afraid of losing momentum. You stop trying to think yourself into love. Thinking yourself into love is subtle, and many intelligent, self-aware women still do this. And it looks like overanalyzing text messages and convincing yourself that the delay doesn't mean anything. It looks like rationalizing emotional unavailability by labeling it as guardedness. It looks like minimizing red flags because you are attached to the idea of what could be. Looks like building a narrative in your head about someone's potential rather than evaluating their present behavior. But alignment does not require convincing. Alignment feels steady, it feels regulated, it feels clear. Unpredictability releases dopamine in spikes, and those spikes can feel intoxicating. When someone is hot and cold, available, and then withdraws, your brain begins to chase the next high of connections. And that chase can masquerade as chemistry. It can feel like density. It can feel like something powerful is happening. But what is happening is attachment circuitry is being activated. True alignment does not hijack your nervous system. It calms it. It does not create obsession. It creates space and peace. It does not have you strategizing your responses. It has you resting in yourself. And once you experience the difference between anxious activation and secure connection, you cannot unknow it. When you are single, you reclaim your identity, not as available for or waiting on someone else, but as awakened to the version of you that has always existed and is doing so according to the quantum perspective. You change your energetic blueprint. Your brain and your heart begin to create a coherency. That field radiates, it broadcasts. Others may feel it. You may walk into a room and you're not seeking connection, but they're drawn to your presence. Why? Because you belong to yourself. You are no longer looking for someone to complete you. You are already complete. And that completeness creates resonance. And that is magnetic. Joe Dispenza calls it a coherent energy signature. And this is not woo-woo. It aligns with neuroscience. When you constantly live aligned with your intentions, your nervous system changes, your brain adapts, you shift from stress into presence. Second, the stillness of solitude becomes your laboratory. It is in those quiet hours, waking before everyone else, sitting with your breath, walking alone, reading, writing, reflecting, that you begin to rewire. You begin to change the narrative that says, I need someone to lean on. Instead, you say, I can lean into myself. You begin to directly feel your emotions rather than outsourcing them. You learn emotional sovereignty. You stay with sadness. You stay with anger. You stay with joy, unmeditated by someone else's reactions. This is power. When the world expects you to be defined by half of a pear, you show up as a whole woman, owning her center. The neural pathways of independent decision-making strengthens. The prefrontal cortex fires in new ways. Every time you choose for you, every time you stand in your solitude and consult yourself first, you activate self-trust. According to the analysis of women living alone, brain scans show increased density in emotional regulation, in enhanced neuroplasticity, stronger internal referencing rather than external dependency. This means that your biology is shifting beneath the story. Your cells, your hormones, your nervous system start replaying to you that, yes, you are safe, you are enough, you belong to yourself. And once you know that at a cellular level, the energy you emit no longer signals desperation or second place. It signals sovereignty and first place. Third, you start to find your purpose. You are creative. You are powerful. Being single gives you space to explore, to expand, to experiment without the energy drain of codependency. You channel your gifts. You face yourself. You honor your desires. You ask bigger questions. Like, who do I want to become instead of who will want me? Your decisions become yours. Your time becomes yours. Your energy becomes yours. And within that sacred space, you step into what Dispenza refers to as quantum leaps. Because when you maintain a consistent energy field, undistracted, undiluted, you stop sending mixed intentions into the field. You begin to manifest with precision. You become the generator rather than the receiver. You are the source rather than the reflection. Women living alone, research says, report accelerated cognitive flexibility, heightened creativity, problem solving, and a shift in their life trajectory, not because they're desperate, but because their energy field is no longer fragmented. So your singleness becomes not a pause, but a portal into the possibilities of everything you truly want. And yes, I know the fear is real. I know the inner voice whispers, but what if nobody ever shows up? What if I die alone? What if I'm never chosen? But I want to ask you today, what if the partner you seek is not an addition to you, but a reflection of you when you're fully becoming yourself? And if that someone isn't the validation, you are the validation. What if this time that you don't wait for someone to arrive, but you arrive for yourself? Arrive in your body, arrive in your heart, arrive in your truth. Because when you are done chasing someone else's approval, you begin to attract someone's resonance. When your field says, I deserve alignment, the universe begins to test you. Is your field clear? And if it's still murky from old conditioning of I'm not enough or I need someone, then the test begins. You may face distractions and settling because your field is still saying, I'm available for whatever, rather than I'm aligned with. But when your field says that I'm whole, your soul magnetizes with what resonates with you and what resonates with that. And you become the kind of woman who others want, not because they need you, but because they feel you. Now, let's bring this into your everyday life because it's not just philosophy, it's lived. You wake up one day and you realize that you're not in search mode. You realize you haven't looked at your phone by your bedside because you're not waiting for a ping. You've looked at yourself in the mirror and said, hello, good morning, I got you. You make choices that align with you rather than with what someone else might want. Maybe you pursue a new skill. Maybe you travel somewhere alone. Maybe you invest in yourself in therapy or coaching or a body that you love, a nervous system that you invest in. You create rituals, morning writing, the silence walks, the sacred baths, the journal prompts. What do I crave when nobody's watching? You begin to honor your rhythms, your desire, and your sovereign time. You also begin to allow people to be with you, not because you need them, but because you want them. Suddenly your energy field shifts. You're no longer one of many. You're a distinct presence. You become the woman whose solo life isn't a placeholder, but an anchor. And when you do begin to let someone in, the dynamic is different. You're not inviting someone to fill a void. You're inviting someone to share your overflow. You're not giving from need. You're offering from fullness. You're not asking, will you love me? Because you already love yourself. You're asking things like, will you expand with me? Will you align with me? Will you meet me where I am? Will you walk beside me as whole rather than join me because you feel incomplete? And if the answer is yes, you both elevate each other together. If the answer is no, you gracefully continue your path because your identity isn't tethered to an outcome. You're not built from contingency. Your foundation is you. And I want you to hear this, that your worth is not found in the pages of someone else's story. It's found in the book that you're writing. And being single gives you an epic space to write new chapters. Maybe you begin to clear the ledger of old relation debt, abandonment, betrayal, self-sacrificing. Maybe you heal the wound of, I was the one who always gave and got nothing in return. Maybe you reparent yourself. Maybe you realign to the truth that you were never less than. You were just unconsciously holding out for someone who mirrored your fear not your possibilities. That stops now. You decide, I will fall in love with me deeply. That when I meet someone, I recognize them not because I crave them, but because I chose them. Not because I need them, but because I wanted them. Not because I'm afraid of being alone, but because I've been so gloriously alone and tuned into that freedom. And when we're on healing, healing takes patience. Healing takes presence. It also takes allowing the grief of lost relationships, the ache of unmet expectations, the phantom live of almost to move through you. It takes acknowledging that being single might feel for a while like a little raw and uncomfortable. It might feel like an unfulfilled room, but you stay in it. You inhabit it. You breathe into it. You welcome the discomfort because you know on the other side of that discomfort lies your frequency. You know the pain is not the destination. It is the excavated site. You dig through it. You pull out the fear, the programs, the belief that I'm less if I'm not with someone. You replace it with the truth that I am more because I am free. And in your freedom, your light will change. Your field will change. Your life will change and your frequencies will change. Let me remind you something quiet but powerful. A woman's power is not defined by her relationship status. It is defined by her presence, her coherence, her ability to stand in stillness, her ability to feel her worth when no one is watching, her ability to decide not only to wait for love, but to embody love, to live in love, to radiate love, and to know that love is not needing someone. It is being someone. And if you're listening and you're single and it scares you, I want you to feel this truth. You're exactly where you need to be. Not because you're stuck, not because you failed, but because this time you are preparing. And the preparation is the part that creates the magnet. The preparation is the time when you decide you're not going to settle for less. The preparation is the time when you cultivate your inner world so radically that only someone who can meet that level will show up. And if a decade goes by, or a year, or 5 or 10, it doesn't matter because you're not counting years, you're counting depth, you're counting alignment, you're counting authenticity, you're counting the woman you're becoming. You're not waiting for the clock to tell you that you're late. You're waiting on time with your own evaluation. And if you feel lonely sometimes, yes, that's okay. Recognize it, name it, sit with it, but don't let it define your story. Because loneliness is one moment. Wholeness is your identity. Let the moments of loneliness deepen your appreciation for your own company. Let them remind you that you are built to belong, not because of others, but because of self. Let them open you to the fact that you can feel the fullness of presence even without a partner. Let them show you that you can love yourself fiercely and that the love you seek externally is actually living inside of you. When you become whole in your single state, you begin to walk differently. You carry yourself differently. You speak differently. You attract differently. And sometimes life will come along and meet you at that level. Or sometimes you will fully own your single state and live your wildest life anyway, unpaired yet undiminished. You might travel solo. You might start a business. You might serve. You might create. You might love friendships deeply. You might choose community rather than codependency. And you realize this is not fallback. This is the front row. This is first place. I remember the moment I realized this for myself. I realized I was grieving the version of myself I never allowed myself to become. I was grieving the love I never extended to me. In that moment, I made a vow. I will become the woman I was waiting for. I will become the friend, the lover, the healer that I've been seeking. I will become full. And that moment changed everything. Suddenly, my single state was not a waiting line, but a training ground for greatness. It was the silence before I spoke into the mission even louder. It was the stillness before I moved in the world more fiercely. It was the empty bed that invited me to fill it with my prayers. And within that filling, I became less afraid and more me. And as you embrace this chapter, know this: the world needs your full presence. When you stand in your power as a woman who is single by choice or circumstances, and you refuse to be defined by that word, quote unquote, single, you stand as a model of possibility. You show younger women what it looks like to carry your filled yourself. You shift the collective. You rewrite the script. You show that love isn't a reward for completion. It's an invitation for expansion. You show that being single isn't the absence of love. It's the presence of self. And one final truth: there's no time limit. The clock, the culture, the timelines, they're all conditioned. They're all whispers. You don't need to conform. You don't need to hurry. You don't need to compromise. The same universe that brought you into this being is ready to bring your alignment experience when you're aligned. And if someone shows up and it fits, you'll both be ready. If no one shows up, you'll still be ready, because you operate from wholeness, not desperation, because you serve from overflow, not need. Today, I want you to feel your sovereignty. I want you to remember you are single and powerful. You are single and aligned. You are single and loved. You are single and creating a legacy, not a ledger. You are single and complete. So from wherever you are, take a slow, deep breath and exhale the old story of I'm missing something, and inhale the new story of I am someone. Soften into your body, feel your heart beating. The rhythm is in your life. The rhythm is in your love. The rhythm is in your power. And I am so full of love and gratitude that I get to share my story with you. This is her subconscious blueprint, where we don't just chase the dreams, we become them. And remember, you don't get what you want, you get who you are. So go out and be that version today. Much love and gratitude. I will see you next time.